So as some of you may know, we have heard some talk, some rumblings about a potential super fight between the 145 champion Ilia Topuria and the 155-pound champion Islam Makhachev. But the UFC has not confirmed this, and they don't even want to entertain the idea as of right now. But I think the UFC just showed us their hands and have accidentally leaked and confirmed that this fight is going to be taking place next for both these fighters. They have just showed the most incriminating piece of evidence they can give us, the fans, and I'm here to talk about it. You want to know what the piece of evidence, the most incriminating piece of evidence they just dropped? Boom! Ta-da! UFC Fight Night Moreno versus Usyk in Mexico City, Mexico. Okay, you might be saying, dude, how does a Fight Night main event in Mexico City of Moreno versus Usyk, how does that tell us Islam's going to be fighting Ilia? Well, I'm going to explain here. Now, the first thing you might be asking yourself when you're looking at this Fight Night main event is that, why is Moreno fighting Steve Usyk? Steve Usyk's coming off a brutal KO loss against Kai Kara-France. And Moreno's coming off a win. This fight doesn't make too much sense. Why is Usyk fighting up in the rankings coming off a brutal loss? Well, it's because they need a Mexican fighter to highlight Mexican talent for the Mexican people in Mexico. And Brandon Moreno was one of the only guys who was available. But before, not too long ago, there was actually rumors about another fight happening as this main event. I'm talking about Yair Rodriguez versus Diego Lopez as this main event. This would have been way better. I mean, on one side, you have the Mexican fighter Yair Rodriguez versus Diego Lopez, who is the trainer of Alexa Grasso, if you can call him a trainer. I know what he's doing with Alexa Grasso, okay? He's gooning with her. But in all seriousness, this fight would have been 10 times better and makes 10 times more sense for the number one contender fight in the featherweight division, whereas Brandon Moreno versus Usyk doesn't make all too much sense. Now from here, you got to think, why would a fight night between Yair Rodriguez and Diego Lopez get canceled? Why would the UFC not do this fight when they had this available to them? Well, it's because one of the fighters is going to be fighting against someone else for a more important occasion. And that occasion is obvious to us. It's going to be Diego Lopez versus Volkanovski for an interim belt. This is the only fight that makes sense for both these guys right now. Only if Ilia is going to be fighting someone else. If Ilia is fighting someone else, such as Islam Makhachev, this fight makes perfect sense. Volkanovski himself has said in the past that he only wants to fight for titles. So if he's fighting Diego Lopez, that's for an interim title. If it wasn't for an interim title, Volkanovski has said he will gladly wait for Ilia to fight, and he will be the first guy he's going to be fighting. So the plan they have basically told us by announcing Usyk versus Moreno is basically Diego Lopez and Yair are not fighting because one of them is leaving. That's Diego Lopez. Diego Lopez fighting Volk for the interim belt. Why are they fighting for the interim belt? Because Ilia Topuria is going to be moving up, taking his undisputed belt to fight Islam Makhachev at 155. And I feel like this is the only course of action they can actually do that makes sense, because Islam Makhachev has no contenders other than Arman Tsarukyan. But Dana White has made it clear that he does not want Arman in that title fight against Islam after what he did in UFC 311 main event when he pulled out because of a back injury. Dana White has said he does not want Arman to fight Islam next. Arman needs to wait, get one more fight, and then he can get a title fight. So what is Islam going to do in the meantime? I mean, he's beaten a lot of the top contenders, the Charles Oliveira's, you have Arman Tsarukyan, Justin Gaethje. He's beaten a lot of these guys, not Justin Gaethje, but does he really deserve it? He doesn't have any contenders, is basically what I'm saying. No one has been active enough in the 155 division to put themselves in that number one contender fight. Justin Gaethje's already booked. He wouldn't even be able to fight him, right? So this is the UFC's plan. I'm going to lay it out. They're going to do Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez for an interim belt, 314 in Miami. And then they're probably going to be doing Islam versus Ilia Topuria on 316 or 317, whichever one both these fighters agreed to. Islam Makhachev probably making a pretty quick turnaround relative to what he's used to, just because he didn't take much damage. I mean, did he even get punched at all in his last fight against Moicano? I don't think so. I'm pretty sure he slipped, he got a takedown, he didn't do much on the ground, and then he submitted him, and that was the end of the night. Now I think the only question is not about if this fight is going to happen. I think the question is the fact that who wins these fights and how are we going to be able to move forward after the outcomes of these fights? Because these are huge fights with huge kind of things attached to them. I mean, you got Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez for an interim belt. If Volkanovski wins the interim belt to beat Diego Lopez, that sucks, because then you don't have a contender for the featherweight champion other than Movsar Evloev after that, right? Volkanovski is going to be fighting Ilya to reunify the belts after, but that's if Ilya wants to fight at 145 again. Ilya might not want to fight at 145 again, but if he loses to Islam, he kind of has to fight it at 145 again, because Islam versus Ilya, it's a super fight. But is it a competitive fight between Ilya and Islam? I just don't think so. I think Islam is just too big, too strong, too powerful, too well-rounded to lose to a guy like Ilia Topuria. Ilia Topuria, I mean, who are his best wins? Volkanovski, I understand, good win, but that doesn't really count because Islam just knocked him out before that. Max Holloway is a good win. Max Holloway's a good win. Bryce Mitchell, it's a win, and Josh Emmett, it's a win. You know what? Both those wins. So he's got one legitimate win over Max Holloway. The rest of his wins don't count. But I'm really excited for this fight. I don't care if the odds are completely terrible. I don't care if Islam's gonna dominate. I'm excited for this fight. Just because I don't mind Ilya. I have nothing against Ilya, but it's almost like the fans of Ilia Topuria just drive me insane, acting like this guy is the second coming of Jesus Christ himself, you know? Like, you just go into any sort of Twitter area, you go into Instagram comment sections, you'll just see everybody glazing Ilya, acting as if he could be a quadruple champ, go from featherweight all the way up to middleweight. It's just too much for me. It's just too much. But what do you guys think of this fight announcement between Brandon Moreno and Steve Erceg? Do you guys think that they accidentally leaked Ilya versus Islam because of this? And finally, my last question for you is, who do you think wins the two fights of Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez and Islam versus Ilya? Let me know what you guys think. Don't forget to smash that like button, man, and subscribe for more content, man. I'm live streaming every day, and I love the people. I love MMA, I love UFC, and I love you. And Alexa Grasso, and I love Alexa Grasso. She's also my shawty. Tracy Cortez, I'll also like, and Mackenzie Dern. Thank you guys for listening. Peace.